Welcome to the fascinating world of the probability. This presentation will be introducing you to core concept of probability, helping you understand how likely events are to happen in various situations, from simple coin tossing to complex predictions. Probability is around us. We will explore key definitions, properties, and practical applications, and making abstract ideas clear and easy to grab. Get ready to know secret of channels. So what is probability? Probability tells how likely an event is happen. It's a numerical measurement between 0 to 1, or it is 0% for 0, 1 for 100%. That quantify uncertainty. One common way to define probability is by observing how often an event happens. When you repeat an experiment many times, this is known as the relative frequency approach. Definition based on relative frequency approach. Let's say you are reporting an experiment like tossing a coin, rolling a die, or observing the weather. We are interested in a particular event A, like generating a head, rolling a 6, or raining. The probability of an event A, denoted as P of A, is defined as value that relative frequency of A approaches as the number of trials becomes very large. Think of it as events long run portion. And coming to relative frequency in action, coin tossing, for example. Imagine you are, example for you, imagine you are tossing a fair coin. Imagine you are tossing a fair coin repeatedly. Let's see how the relative frequency of getting heads and changes as you are the number of tosses. Let's observe the graph. Number of headed increases. As you know, the relative frequency of head tends to get closer to 0.5 or 50%. As the number of tosses increases, the illusion of the core idea of behind the defining probability. Let's see the properties of relative frequency. Value between 0 and 1. The relative frequency of any event will always be a number between 0 and 1. Inclusive can never be negative or greater than 1. 0 less than or equal to relative frequency of A is less than 1. Create certain event. If an event is certain to happen, getting a head number less than 7. When roll is star die. If an event is certain to happen, getting a head less than 7 when rolling started is relative frequency will happen approach is 1. Impossible event. If an event is impossible, roll for example rolling an 7 on a standard die, its relative frequency will be approaches 0. Sum of mutual exclusive events. If two events A and B cannot be happen at the same time, mutually exclusive. The relative frequency of A or B happening in the sum of their individual relative frequencies. These properties are highlighted by relative frequency is a sound basis of understanding probability, the ensure the probability that the probability logically and consistently. This is the classical definition of probability. Classical definition of probability is a fundamental approach that works well when all possible outcomes of an experiment are equally likely. If all the outcomes of an experiment are equally likely, then the probability of an event A is given by P of a number of favorable outcomes for A by total number of possible outcomes. In a simple term, if there are n total equally likely outcomes and m of them are make the events A happen, then P of A equal m by n. This definition is particularly useful for the game of chance as situations where the symmetry ensures the finish, like flipping a coin or rolling a die. Classical probability in action. Example, dice roll. Let's consider a rolling a standard six sides die. What is the probability of rolling an even number? Total possible outcome. The die can be land on 2, 1, comma 2, comma 3, 4, 5, or 6, and so number of possibilities 6. The favorable outcome for a even a rolling an even number m. The even numbers are 2, 4, 6. So m equal to 3. P, rolling an even number equal to number of even outcomes by total number of outcomes, 3 by 6. Therefore 3 by 6 is 1 by 2, 1 by 2 equals 0.2. So that the probability of rolling an even number is 0.5 or 50%. Comparing definition relative frequency versus classical. Relative frequency approach is based on the observation and experimentation. How it works. Conducts an experimental many times and calculate the classical approach based on logical and reasoning about the equally likely outcomes. Relative frequency, how it works. Conduct an experiment many times and collected the proportional of times an event occurs. In classical approach, count favorable outcomes and divide by total possible outcomes. Test for situation where outcomes are necessarily equally likely or when it is impractical to list all outcomes. Example, predicting weather and sports outcomes. In classical approaches, can be easily enabled. Example, rolling die and drawing card from well-shaped. Relative frequency approach examples are the probability of a rain tomorrow based on historical weather pattern. Examples for classical approach is the probability of drawing an us from a deck of cards. Both the definitions are valid as useful depending on the context, and often the relative frequency approaches services as a bridge to understand the probability with the theoretical calculations are too complex. Probability in the real world. Probability is just for math class. It is used every, not for the just math class. It is used for every day. Probability is the real world. Probability is not just for math class. It is used every day in our life or various fields. Probably in the real world, the probably is just for math class. It is probably is not just for math class. It is used every day in various fields. For example, weather forecasting and financial markets and medical research and sports analysis. For determining your chance of winning a lottery to making informed decision in business, and probability plays a crucial role in navigating uncertainty. And fundamental properties are properties of probability is regardless of how you define. If the relative frequency are classical, all possible change fundamental properties. Probability range is probability of an event A. Probability range is the probability of an event A denoted P of A is always a number between 0 and 1, including 0 less than P of A less than 1. 0 means the event is impossible, 1 means event is certain. Sum of probability, the sum of probabilities of all possible outcomes in a sample space must be equal to summation of P of outcomes equal to 1. This ensures that the something must happen. Complement rule, the probability of that event A does not occurs its complete denote does not occurs its complement denoted A is 1, meaning is the probability that A does occurs. P of A bar equal 1 minus P of A. For example, if the probability for example the probability of rain is 0.3, the probability of Number of rings is 0.7. Key takeaways and next steps. Key takeaways: the probability, a measuring of how likely events to occur are happening from 0 to 1. A relative frequency defined based on observing outcomes are many trials are approaching a stable of operation. And a classical definition of application when all outcomes are equally likely calculated by the favorable outcomes divided by total outcomes. The properties of probability is always between 0 and 1 and sum of all possible outcomes is 1. The next step in your probability journey is the practical problems and working through the exercise and involving point tosses, dice rolls, and the card drains and future problems. Understanding the probability is the fundamental skills for many fields from science and engineering and business in every decision.